Ellis Show. Here is your host.
Hi, I'm Ron Coleman. I'm sitting in for Jenna today. I got the call that there was a naval issue. That's right, a naval issue, a nautical issue, preventing Jenna from joining you today, and that I was being pressed into service. And I was told to rant about anything I wanted for 20 minutes. Well, that sounds like fruit that's hanging a little bit too low. Let me tell you what I mean. We all understand that everything is going to hell, right? All around us, we see the inversion of every traditional value. The literal promotion of unsafe streets as a policy goal. The erosion of democratic and legal standards. From what I hear, the movies are really lousy. I don't go to the movies much, but people seem to complain about the movies a lot. China. Cost of living, super high. Interleague baseball, they're really going to go through with this. They've been going through with it for a while, and they're not stopping. These are problems. Any one of these would be absolutely appropriate for a 20-minute rant. But you hear that all the time, don't you? Let's take a different perspective. It is very easy to forget what an extraordinary time we live in. Let me give you some examples. Medicine alone. Gene therapy. This was stuff that my dad, of blessed memory, used to talk about as the future. Gene therapy. It's happening now. Access to information technology in the medical profession. Doctors are able to get their hands on sources of information about everything relating to the treatment of a patient, the diagnosis of a patient, instantaneously. When I was a kid, Captain Kirk would, on a really hard question, if there was something that he and Mr. Spock didn't know, usually the doctor did. There's a lot he didn't know. But if it was Mr. Spock or Captain Kirk, if they washed out, they would ask the computer. And the computer, lady's voice, would think and look into things and come back with sort of an AI chat kind of response. All right, this is supposed to be in gazillions of years from now, right? That's what our life is like now, and it's being used in medicine. There's been a 40% reduction in heart disease deaths, and I don't think you can appreciate just how meaningful that is unless you're around my age, and I am 60 years old. People used to just drop dead from heart attacks. Doctors didn't know if people had heart conditions, and there was much they could do for people with heart conditions. Heart problems are just not the kind of threat that they were, even though everyone's bigger and fatter and largely in worse shape than when I was growing up. You've got adult stem cell research and therapies, incredible targeted cancer treatments, minimally invasive and robotic surgery. You can't take this stuff for granted. It's amazing. We live in amazing times. They have these functional technologies and other things that they do with MRI where they can see what's going on kind of in your brain. Not really what's going on, but what kind of things are going on. Advances in neurology are phenomenal. And ironically, after all the things that I just listed, COVID was a blessing in disguise for many reasons, because COVID demonstrated to us just how stupid doctors can be. For all the great leading edge stuff that's going on in the world, COVID showed us that doctors are much more like Frank Burns than we thought, and much less like Hawkeye Pierce than we thought. And that's a good thing, because they're down to earth. We realize that they are subject to the same groupthink and the same fear of non-conforming and all the other human weaknesses that perhaps a lot of us thought they weren't subject to. That's a good thing. Let them keep doing amazing things. but let's be realistic about who they are. That's just medicine. I don't know much about medicine, but I do know this. I don't have to find a phone booth anymore. I don't have to wonder where people that I'm looking for are, hardly ever. I'm able to carry around with me a supercomputer, or what would be regarded as a supercomputer, everywhere, that's available to me virtually all the time to communicate with lots and lots of people. You don't know what it's like to not have a dime for a phone call, or a quarter, a nickel's before my time. To be standing in front of a bank of payphones and not be able to make a call. LED lights. Did you ever think about LED lights? That's a new thing. They're amazing. Venmo, PayPal. Okay, so you don't like PayPal. You want to get involved in boycotting. You can pay anyone, anytime, using the magic. Haircut, furniture assembly, whatever it is you need. Cloud computing. Do you remember having to having to save things constantly, and then you would save them onto a floppy disk in case your computer crashed? Because if it crashed, you were never going to see that stuff ever again. There's no reason for that to be part of anyone's life anymore. Now, by the way, computers. There were personal computers when I was growing up. There were certain things that was good for in terms of work habits and discipline, but the ability of a person to be efficient and to produce incredible work, whether it's in writing a book, writing an article, making a podcast video, is phenomenal. We take it for granted. We live in amazing times. Ride-sharing apps. They can be frustrating sometimes, but compared to finding out, I used to do a lot of business travel, and you would sometimes get into a fairly lonely airport, and there might not always be a cab waiting for you there. You'd have to find out what were the local car services. How are you going to get to the hotel? Not anymore. There's also a level of accountability for everything now because of social networking. And in fact, the whole world of social networking is phenomenal. We take it for granted, but the opportunity that it has provided for so many people with no gatekeeping or little gatekeeping. Unbelievable. These are incredible times. Online shopping. There are even YouTube videos, free YouTube videos that can teach you how to do anything. This afternoon when I leave work, I'm going to go home and learn how to operate an arc welder. I understand it's actually pretty easy. Look, things change. Standards change. Society has, in many respects, gotten more coarse, moral values, as I said in the beginning, have fallen apart. Leadership, think of who we consider leaders in our day and age. There are so many things to worry about if you worry. You don't have to worry. It's easy to forget just how amazing the world is that we live in today. The vast majority of what we see on the internet, on Twitter, in podcasts, the things that are worrying us, they're real problems. And we lived through that COVID period. That was an historic event where real problems, real dysfunction of government, medicine, the judiciary, corporations, really just about everything failed. But most of us are still here. And every generation has its era. And every era has its catastrophes. Sometimes the catastrophes are known. Sometimes they're not known. We have the ability today to know more about the possibly catastrophic aspects of our lives and what others would have our lives become than ever before. It's amazing. Have some perspective. Listen to an old man. Have some perspective. I'll tell you some things I don't miss. I don't miss phone booths because I'll tell you something. Besides needing money to operate them, they weren't always so clean smelling. I don't miss gatekeepers. I can publish. I can write. I can speak. I can't make you listen to me. But I don't need anyone's permission to get my words out there and my ideas, to challenge authority. You know what I don't miss? Running out of film. Developing film. Printing pictures. Getting reprints. I can take a picture of anything, anywhere, anytime, and I do. Do you know that when I was growing up, you needed to ask the phone company for permission to add an additional phone to your house? In other words, you had a phone in the kitchen. You wanted to add a phone to the bedroom. You had to place an order with the phone company to come and install an extra phone in the bedroom. And they would then charge you for that extra phone, not an extra line, not an extra number, same phone number, another headset. Yes, in my lifetime. You know what I don't miss? Rust. Cars used to rust like crazy. They hardly rust at all anymore. Okay, so you find it hard to afford a car now. But what a car does now, the things a car does now, including have working air conditioning, including having working clocks. When I was a kid, and I mean through my teenage years, through my early adult years too, virtually no clock in a car ever worked. It was just understood that electrical clocks in cars didn't work. Now your car is a rolling computer. I mentioned air conditioning. Buses, trains, everything's air conditioned now. Now, that might come at some cost, but it was pretty lousy when there was no air conditioning on the subway. It was pretty lousy when there was no air conditioning in stores. Everything's air conditioned now. That's actually pretty good because when it's hot, it's not very nice out. But you know what is nice? The atmosphere. When I grew up, every apartment building in New York City had an incinerator. It was very simple. It was a big fire pit at the bottom of a chute. And every night after dinner, you'd take a paper bag and throw your garbage in the pit, and the garbage would be burned up completely. You wouldn't need landfills. You wouldn't need trash compactors. But there was soot everywhere. Do you realize how much cleaner our air and water are now? I hate to give credit to the environmental movement as such, but something had to be done, and it was done, and things are better. If you don't remember the 60s and 70s, much less the 50s, I wasn't around in the 50s, you're not going to appreciate this point. In fact, this was also a local concern. People used to smoke everywhere. I mean everywhere. There were smoking sections of buses, airplanes, movie theaters. How much good do you think a smoking section did if you were in the non-smoking section? Not much. Everybody smoked. Everybody smelled of smoke. It wasn't healthy. It was stinky. some problems are very real and very serious, and having a good attitude and perspective are not going to make them go away. And there are a couple of things I think that we do have to do, every one of us, to get through this challenging time. I'm being serious here now. If you have children that were still in school, you should probably look very seriously into taking them out of public school. Also, not putting them into a mainstream private school. They're every bit as bad. Same thing with colleges. You're going to send a kid to college, all those brand names. Look, I got brand names, okay? Northwestern, Princeton, those are nice schools to go to. In the 80s, these places are completely off the table now. Forget how much they cost, and forget what a racket that cost is. It's a racket. These are not nonprofits. People are making serious bank running these schools. They're intolerable places for people with decent values. Take better care of yourself. I finally started to. You can't live a sedentary lifestyle. You're not going to be happy with yourself, especially as you get older. Do you want to be one of those people that they drive around the mall in the or around the airport in a golf cart? I'll answer that for you. No. Above all, clarify your values and beliefs. Ask yourself why any of this matters at all. If you don't believe in God or in eternity, then none of these things that are going kablooey should bother you, because they don't matter. These are all just arbitrary reactions, arbitrary chemical and biological phenomena, and they don't matter. If you do believe in God, then you understand that we do have an obligation to take care of ourselves and to do what we can, but that God runs the world, and getting super upset isn't gonna help. Also, I guess I should have put this before the last one, but stop reacting to every little bit of news. Oh no, look who Elon hired. You don't have to have a take every single second. You don't have to come to a conclusion every minute. You don't have to boycott. You don't have to quit. You don't have to jump off the bridge. Let things play out. Even if you have trouble with eternity and divinity, have a little bit of a long-term perspective. After all, I'm only going 20 minutes today. Wasn't that easy? Thanks for joining me. I hope I have the opportunity to speak to you again. I'm Ron Coleman. I have my own podcast. It's called Coleman Nation. Coleman-nation.com. I'm also on Twitter at Ron Coleman. And I thank you very much for joining today with me on the Jenna Ellis Show.